Alrighty then, hopefully this works. Everybody, I'm making this video because I want to update everyone on what's been going on here with me and everything that I'm doing and my writing projects and everything. That's going to be starting full bore very, very soon. I'm waiting on a new keyboard, because the keyboard I'm using right now is a piece of crap. I'm not even going to really edit this video. I could grab a video editor real quick, but I'm a Linux user again. I used to use Ubuntu way back in the day. I was one of those that jumped on the Ubuntu bandwagon, and I really loved using it. That was during the GNOME 2 days, and then Unity came. And I despised Unity. I don't know why every major desktop thought, hey, everybody hates Windows 8. Everybody hates that interface. Let's all emulate it. And why Ubuntu and a lot of others, I think GNOME decided to emulate it with GNOME 3. You know, just that having your apps on a grid instead of being organized like this, you know, into categories so you can find stuff easy. This is the way Ubuntu used to be. So you can find stuff. You can find your applications. And you can't find your applications if it's all in one big grid. I mean, it's hard to find stuff. But, I am a Linux user again, and I'm using Manjaro, which is a distro built from Arch Linux. And Arch is, well, Arch is one step away from being Linux from scratch. And Linux from scratch is where you build basically your own distribution. You compile everything. You create the drive, you create the partitions, you create the bootloader, you compile the kernel the way you want it with everything that you want in it and everything and leave out the things you don't want. You build X Windows or Wayland, whichever you want to use. You build your desktop environment from source, everything from source code with Linux from scratch. That's what Tiger is doing. He's going that route. Arch is Linux from scratch without all the compiling. If I went the bare Arch route, which I might do on my other machine, I'm gonna try another Arch distribution called CachyOS on my gaming PC very soon. But with that, you can choose your kernel, you can choose your process scheduler, you know, to get better speed performance out of applications and games. And I'm going to try that, and if it doesn't work out, then I'm going to roll my own with Linux from scratch. But yeah, I'm a full-time Linux user again. Got a 1 terabyte drive as my main drive. Got a 2 terabyte SSD that I got all my stuff on, all my images that I share on Twitter, or I steal from Twitter. I got some ROMs that I play. Sometimes this machine that I've got this on, this is my daily driver PC. It is an HP mini PC that we bought, like, I want to say we bought it about a year ago. It was only about $400. It was used. It still has an asset tag on it from the company that it was being used by. It was basically an industrial machine. It's one of those real small computers, very tiny computers that probably used in some workstation somewhere in some company. and I've taken it over. Tiger used it initially. He's got a new computer. He bought, if you saw the periphractic video on the Commodore 64X, the new case designed, and the PC they sent him, he's got that PC. It's got the Core i9 in it. It has a NVIDIA 1650 GPU in it. So it's all crammed into a Commodore 64 case. It's sort of, the machine he has is this weird bastard child mutant baby cross between a laptop motherboard and a desktop. It's strange. It's not a laptop form factor board. It's ITX, but it has a combination of laptop and desktop components in it. It's got desktop memory, but it's got a laptop CPU soldered to the board, a laptop GPU and memory, graphics memory for the GPU soldered to the board with a laptop heating solution on it. It's weird. This thing is like absolutely strange, and the BIOS in it, the EFI, is completely unlocked. It has features in it that you normally don't see when you look at the EFI on your computer. It is absolutely just unlocked what it can do. Now, a lot of the features don't work because the motherboard doesn't have all those components. This thing is custom. It is absolutely custom, and we don't know who made it because there's no manufacturer on the silk screen on the board, and it has no manufacturer information in the burned into the firmware. It just has an AMI BIOS, and that's it, or AMI firmware, and that is it. And it came from the group that is making those modern day PC Commodore 64s with Commodore OS Vision, which is built off of MX Linux, which I think is Debian. Yeah, I think that's a Debian. But yeah, I'm a full-time Linux user again. I've got access to a whole bunch of stuff, all these accessories, most of which I don't use. If you were doing Arch, you wouldn't have nearly as many of these things. Some of these things are part of Cinnamon, which is this desktop, and some of these are just that were added by the people who made the distro. I've got some stuff. I hate RetroArch with a passion, but I've got it here for some stuff. Got an NES emulator, Super NES emulator. Got to look for a good Genesis emulator. Here, graphics. Got Krita, of course. Got GIMP. Internet. I use Brave. I've got InSync installed in here. I've got the Proton Bridge for my Proton Mail. I've got OnlyOffice, and I deselected LibreOffice from being installed, but it installed it anyway. But oh well, at least I'll have it. And then I've got a lot of other odd sound and audio. I've got a native Linux version of Spotify, which for some reason won't launch anymore. I don't know why it's broken. So I set up a web client version of it to work. That's what you're hearing now. Accessibility features and administrative tools, preferences, and it's all organized. It's all organized so that you can find your stuff, and that's why I hate that cell phone-like grid of icons for your applications. And a lot of distributions are going back to this, so you can actually find your shit. And this is a thing for looking up programs. You can find applications and install them. I believe this is, I don't think this is being pulled off of the AUR, off of the Arch repositories. I think it might pull some from the Arch repositories. Where is this pulling from? Core. I think it might be. Yeah, I think this might be pulling from some of the, think it might be pulling from some of the Arch repositories. Arch itself doesn't have a software center thing like this in it. You have to do everything through the command line, and frankly, people are afraid of the command line, and I'm not at all, and it would help to learn it. It's like, oh, I don't want to learn all this command. If I have to touch the terminal, I don't want it. It's like, you wouldn't, if you were back in the DOS days, that's all you had was the command prompt, and you had to learn stuff. Like, I remember back in the day when we actually had to make individual boot disks for specific games. So you had to have certain things load when you booted up your computer in order to be able to play certain games. Back in the MS-DOS days, back before Windows came along. And those people would not be able to handle that. And so using Linux is sort of like going back to those days where, you know, you had to create your own boot disk. You don't have to do that in Linux, but you can use the command prompt. There's a lot of things you can do with the command prompt. This isn't like Windows where you can do everything with the GUI. This gives you significantly more power, and that power requires a great responsibility because it gives you a lot of power. So you can do some great stuff with it, or you can really fuck it up really bad too. So you have to know what you're doing. This is where AI really helps. If you have ChatGPT, or if you use Grok on X, which I use, I've actually found Grok useful. You can ask it questions and about what, commands and stuff to use to do what you want to do on here, and it will 9 times out of 10 give you the correct answer of what to do. I mean, was able to install some software. I was able to install InSync, which is the software I use to sync up my files in Google Drive up to my computer. I was able to install it from the terminal because there was no Arch version, but there was a way to use a Debian package to install on Arch. There were commands that you could use in order to sort of convert a Debian package into something that Arch or Pac-Man understands. And I was able to do that and install it, and it's working. So I get all my files, it's right here. I get all my files from my Google Drive on my machine. And that's a lot of those files that are there are stuff that I use for Gamers Bay and stuff, creating video thumbnails and stuff for Gamers Bay videos and the videos that I make for this channel. So, yeah, I'm gonna be using Linux full-time for now on. I'm not going to Windows 11. I've been following the stories on Windows 11 a lot, and I am not liking anything that I'm hearing. I've been hearing from people who have used Windows 11, and they really don't like what they're seeing. Gaming performance from what I understand, is not that great on Windows 11 compared to Windows 10. And I've been seeing a lot of stuff where gaming performance on Linux has really shot up. Valve has done a lot with Proton to improve gaming performance, and I don't play many games that use a kernel level anti-cheat. I did once download Valorant, and I'm going to uninstall that thing, and I want to make sure that it get. You know what, I don't even need to worry about making sure it gets uninstalled completely, because I'm going to scrap that partition anyway when I install Linux. But Valorant uses a kernel level anti-cheat, and those should be illegal, because kernel level anti-cheat, what it does, it's a rootkit. Long time ago, Sony released audio CDs. And when you put them on your PC, it required you to install, before you could actually play the audio CDs on your computer, you had to install this software that was DRM. And it installed a rootkit. And this rootkit made itself invisible on your computer. You could not find it using the file manager. It was invisible, couldn't be detected. Well, someone hacked that software, and they were able to use it to build malware. And so Homeland Security issued a warning to Sony, get rid of this stuff now. And so I think rootkit anti-cheat stuff should be made illegal. It is dangerous to have that kind of software that has access to your kernel on your computer, that has direct access to, what is it, Ring 0 at kernel level. That should not have access to that. So anti-cheat software. Yeah, should not have hardware level access at all. There are things that they can do on the server side. That's what.
Even if they don't abuse it, even if they don't do anything bad to it, the fact that it exists makes it a weak point that somebody else with bad intentions can come in, utilize it, and do bad things.
Okay, I don't know if that picked Tiger up. He's sitting over here just now. But someone with bad intentions could use it as a weak point to get into your machine.
That's the real danger.
And that's the real danger of kernel level anti-cheat software, and that's why a lot of those games that use it are, pulled their games off of the Steam Deck, because it can't use that software, because you can't do that on Linux. The way the security on Linux works, you can't have that. And there are things that you can do, that they can do on the server side to check for cheating. In fact, that's what a lot of the Valve anti-cheat stuff it does, is it can do a lot of server side detection, or it can do other methods of detection that don't require that kind of low level access to the kernel and the hardware.
That's what's good about Linux, is that it's got two states. Either you're root or you're not root. It's very easy to track when something breaks the barrier and goes root.
Yeah.
If it does, it's a bad thing, and that's a place to look. Mm-hmm. With Windows, there's so much overcomplication that you slip in, sneak in, through, and go around the corner, get this kind of access, get that kind of access, and break all the way in, and you get some sort of administrative level stuff. But then the operating system turns right around and locks the user out of their own stuff.
Yeah.
So it lets the bad guy in through various machinations, where it keeps the user from their own stuff.
Yeah. Like where here, I'm not an admin. I have to use an admin password if I want to do some major changes to the computer. Whereas on Windows, everybody's an admin.
There's another caveat to this too, though, where Windows tries to, does these weird things where regular users can't even do stuff with their own hardware. Linux gives you enough power wipe yourself out with a single few keys. With that great power becomes great. Be very careful.
I said that earlier. The terminal gives you enough power to do great things, and you can also do terror. You can also
blow your machine
up with it too. If I typed in the right command, it will happily erase the entire drive.
Yeah.
Windows won't let you do that, but Linux, it goes, oh, you want to erase everything on the root drive? Okay. And it starts doing it.
The only time that Linux actually does lock something in a hard way that you can't do anything with it is when the kernel is busy using a resource, and when a resource gets locked, when busy with doing something, that's about the only time that the kernel will actually override and say no.
Yeah. I had to use sudo in order to copy over a image file into a directory so that the login window would be able to use it.
This is funny. I just thought of something. On Windows, you always need your administrative account just to get something done. Mm-hmm. On Linux, you want to keep away from using your administrative access to keep from tearing your machine apart.
Yes, because you can break things easy. No, that's why
you want to put yourself in that box. You control that box. Yeah. You stay inside it. You want to, because bad things happen when you walk out it.
Which is why I said being afraid of the terminal. I mean, that should not keep you from being a Linux user. That's the number one thing that I keep hearing from people saying that's keeping them from using Linux, because we have to use the terminal. I don't want to use the terminal. Well, the terminal is the most powerful part of a Linux distribution.
I think
it's intimidating. It's intimidating, yes, but if you learn to use it, but that's another problem. People don't want to learn anything.
There's another part to this too that's modern. There's something new has come up that has made using Linux easier, depending on which one you use. AI has gone a long way to making using Linux easier, because you don't have to remember everything there is to do.
I said that earlier because I was using Grok, and Grok has helped, and you've used ChatGPT.
I've been using ChatGPT on a regular basis because that's what I'm using, or been using. And there are times when it just makes things simpler, because it's like I've got a script that does some stuff for a project I'm working on. It's in Perl. I used to program in Perl, but I haven't written in Perl in years, and Perl is just as scripting as ever. Well, it helped me write that little script in almost no time flat. The better your statements to it, and the more common it can be, kind of task you're doing, the more reliable, the more usable the task becomes. It makes these really hard things much simpler.
Perl looks like Egyptian hieroglyphics.
Yeah, Perl. It solved the problem I was having. I needed a hash, which is basically a key value pair, in a script for some version. I'm working on Linux from scratch.
Yeah.
And the beyond Linux from scratch is a large hierarchy of dependency trees, and I was trying to sort my way through that, and I needed a key value pair for what was installed and what was not installed.
Yeah.
And Bash just couldn't cut that kind of data. So I made a Perl script to manage that for me, but I didn't have to write it. ChatGPT wrote it for me, and after a little bit of trial and error, it actually works really, really good now.
I'm not sure what this one is using. I'm not sure if it's Bash or if it's something else.
Which one are you referring to?
Here in Manjaro.
Oh, it's probably Bash.
Probably Bash?
Yeah, there is a one called Dash, which is a lightweight Bash.
I've heard of something called Flash as well. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
No, not off top. Maybe it is. It'll probably have Bash regardless, because that's compatibility issues.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about is the command line shell for Linux. The common one is Bash. It is based on the Linux mimics Unix. Unix has been around since the 70s. And so Bash mimics I think Bash was originally from Unix.
Actually, with the shell prompt, the SH shell.
The SH
Bash
shell.
was invented for Linux.
Bash was invented for Linux, but it mimics that SH shell from
It
Unix.
has compatibility modes for it.
Yeah.
So that everything, there's like a minimum
it's-
compatibility layer.
It's really powerful. Using it, it does have limitations, but it is powerful to use. But I wanted to do this video to basically say, you know, the reason you haven't seen a lot of my writing and stuff is because was transitioning to this.
We've had a couple of strange months.
We've had a couple of strange months. We lost baby. Our friend is gone again. Might lose another leg.
Baby's in heaven. Dave's in baby's in heaven. Dave's in a home, and we're going nuts just sitting around here alone.
Yeah. So I got a mouse here that has a wheel that's going bad. I've got a keyboard that's shit to type on.
Jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid an egg.
I'm waiting for those to come in.
Well, and the Joker got away.
Windows get in. I will start my writing hot and heavy. I've got OnlyOffice on here. I've got access to my Google Drive for stuff. I've got my Spotify, which the native client stopped working for some reason. So I've turned the web version into an application.
Wait a minute, on your Windows machine, the native client stopped working?
No, on the Linux thing,
I didn't know there was a
native Spotify stopped working.
I didn't know there
It
was
won't launch.
I didn't know there was one for it.
Yeah, there is. It won't launch for some reason. Launcher for it won't work.
Oh.
I don't know why.
I've been using it on the web browser. It's about the same as the Windows version.
Yeah, there's a thing that you give it a URL and some different settings, and it will turn a web page into an application window.
Oh. It's almost that way now, just looking at it in Brave.
Yeah. So, been doing that. So that's what's happening with me. That's what's happening with the channel and
Madness!
everything.
Madness! Chaos! What else is new?
Yes, madness, insanity, chaos, the usual around here. And so I will have some stuff to share with you on my writing projects within the next few weeks. Once the keyboard and mouse show up, I'll be able to start working on that more heavily. I'm not going to do it on the Windows side of the machine because in a couple of weeks I'm going to start working on converting that to Linux.
Which Linux are you settling in on? You're going to keep the one you're using, or you're going to?
Well, for this machine, I'm keeping Manjaro.
Okay.
For the other one, I'm going to try CachyOS first.
Okay.
See how it does. It's that is a Arch-based distro.
Okay.
Where you can choose your you can select your kernel, you can select what scheduler you use, your process scheduler. You can choose and pick and choose which one to use on the fly. There's like a GUI menu for doing all that. Yeah.
I was using a DB. I was using pure DB, Debian 12, which was supposed to be current. And my little project completely collapsed under it just falling apart.
Oh yeah, the Valve released their hardware survey stats, and Linux actually went up like 2.5% of the number of users, concurrent active users on Steam. 2.5% translates to tens of millions of users.
Well, the other thing about that is too, as Microsoft starts beating on people about Windows 10, and as Valve goes forward with their work on moving toward Linux, especially when they finally on Valve time release that operating system of theirs, that'll really start pushing the field of Linux forward in a really big way. It's ready to go more open. It's not like going to replace Windows. It never will, because Windows has got too much of a dominance in Best Buy, Gateway, Dell, HP, box stores, Amazon. Windows is never going away because of that. You'll have people who don't know nothing about any of it, who just buy a Windows machine just because. But the penetration of Linux into the gaming community and the gaming world, I think is going to steadily increase over the next few years. I think eventually, not happen immediately, but I think eventually it'll become a real contender. And I think, given my experience, I think Arch is going to wind up on top of the Linux world eventually.
Incidentally, when you break down that 2.5%, when you break it down, the largest majority is SteamOS Hollow, which is the Steam Deck.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's Hollow OS, which is Hollow ISO, which is
they've modified
which
it.
is a modified,
it's their variant of it.
which is a community modified version of Steam Deck OS, but it's Steam Deck OS Hollow, which is on the Steam Deck itself. Arch Linux, and then stuff like Ubuntu and Fedora and stuff are like really low.
Ubuntu and Fedora are the gateway to Linux.
I used to use Ubuntu until they switched to Unity.
There's people who are used to Windows need something familiar to at least cross the line with somewhat, to get used to being somewhere else. And so those operating systems do serve a purpose, but in terms of what you can really do and what you're really going to want to get away with, they're only going to take you so far.
Yeah.
And that's going to be their limitation. But the minute you go further, you've got to get away from them after a certain point.
When
they're a stepping stone.
Someone on X and was calling Ubuntu the Windows of the Linux world. That's not that.
I mean, it's pretty common. It's known. It's also, in my view, kind of overblown and kind of large and overweight.
It's become crap.
It's a bit of a mess.
Yeah,
but it's a gateway for those who are coming from the Windows world who need something familiar.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing it that way to give those guys a way to kind of wean them off a window.
Yeah.
But it's only going to take them so far.
So anyway, I wanted to keep you updated on what's going on here, and I will have some writing projects to talk about in the next few weeks once I get my new keyboard and mouse going. And when we're not playing Final Fantasy, the way we're doing it is insane.
Yeah, we're taking our time.
We're taking our time to do it. Anyway, thanks for watching.
I've invaded his video.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. And
disembodied voice.
You'll hear from me. Oh, you can't even see me. What the hell?
Just put a photo of yourself.
Oh wow, it's gotten super dark for some reason.
Just put a photo of yourself.
Oh wow. All right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Well, that ends